The very act of even trying to pick them up caused a fair amount of bedlam in the barnyard. And the way that it's different is it's a razor blade that's detachable.
Sean was like, I think I'm going to start a sock company.
I didn't think it would work, but it did. Awesome. Hi there, folks. Welcome back to the Yeostead. I'm going to start this video with a disclaimer. We'll be processing animals today, but I will not be showing anything graphic. The only thing that you will see in the course of this video is are animals that are already processed to a pretty high degree. So nothing that you wouldn't see walking down the meat aisle of the supermarket. Anything graphic, dispatching of animals, anything like that, I'm not going to show in this particular video. So with that out of the way, let me talk about what's happening today, and I'll start with a little bit of a preamble. You may have heard the phrase, one bad day, and it's often a maxim that you'll hear in homesteading circles about animals living their best lives, animals that you use for meat, being out where they're supposed to be, being out in the sun, rooting around on pasture. They have these bucolic, amazing lives, and then they have one bad day, and that's the day that you dispatch them and send them to the freezer. Another term you'll often hear in the homesteading world is freezer camp. With all of that being said, tomorrow is a bad day, the one bad day for four of our young turkeys. I think they just hit the mark, a couple months old, where they're ready now to be processed. We got these turkeys from Jim and Kathy of Two Turtles Homestead. They're ready to go. Tomorrow's the day. We've had really cold weather. It's been well below freezing every night, and getting just above freezing during the day, which as far as I'm concerned is great processing weather. And so tomorrow's that day. But one thing I want to say is that these turkeys, they're starting to get to the age where they've been fighting, especially the tom turkeys. They've been fighting with each other. And I'll show you some footage of what we've been witnessing among these young turkeys. Just aggressive behavior, which is kind of normal in young males of any species, really, trying to kind of find their dominance. And it's gotten to the point where it's been violent enough between a lot of these toms where I'll need to physically go in there and break them up. Lenny, who's behind me now, Lenny always joins me on these talks. He isn't involved. He stands behind, just kind of wondering what's going on. Hey guys, stop. He's sure enough in his dominance where he doesn't need to get in and fight, but it's these young male turkeys. So that's going to make things a little bit interesting this evening, because I've been prepping, I've been getting ready today, and that's one thing I'll suggest to anybody that's just now starting to process animals. Get as much done as you can the day or the night prior. Lay out everything that needs to be laid out. Untangle anything that can get tangled. You don't want to deal with laying things out and detangling stuff the morning of your processing day. You want to get as much of that done as possible, and that's what I've been doing. And we'll walk through my setup here in a minute. But what's making this interesting is one of the things I like to do to prep for processing day is penning the animals that will be processed. So in this case, I'd be putting our young turkeys in the A-frame this evening. And I'll show you where. So my initial plan was to kind of shepherd the young turkeys in here. Right now there's a couple chickens hanging out in there. Close the door and pen them in for the night. But with as aggressive as they've been towards each other, there's a concern that they would literally kill each other. One would kill one of the others, and I'd wake up to one or two birds dead. So what do I need to do? There's a couple of things. I think what I am going to do is wake up extra early tomorrow, which I planned on, find some sort of really yummy treat, and lead the affected turkeys that have been chosen to enter paradise, those turkeys, and I'll lead them into the A-frame in the morning with some sort of treats. Now, the purists among you may say, you're not supposed to feed animals before you process them because it's going to fill up their crop, and you're right. But given the alternative, I'm okay with a crop that's a little bit filled with some food. I'm aware of the crop when I'm going through and processing the birds. So you taking all this in, Lenny? So with all that being said, I may come out here tonight and try. Once they've all roosted up, I may try to slowly move them into the A-frame one at a time, but I doubt that will go over well. I've tried to move the turkeys at night before, and they wake up and a hullabaloo is raised. So I may come in and check on them tonight, but what I'll probably do is just wake up extra early, give them their final meal in the A-frame and lock them in that way. And that way I won't have to chase them around in the morning before I process them. They'll all be in one place, ready to go. I've run through this operation now enough times to kind of have a system in place that I think makes it easier on me for my own particular way of doing it. And there's just a few steps. The first step is obviously to dispatch them. That's what these cones are for. The turkeys are small enough to where I won't need to hang them by the feet. I'll be able to fit their heads through and dispatch them here. After I've dispatched them, I'll probably cut off their wing tips over here, dispose of those wing tips, and then bring them in here to the dunk tank, which you might be wondering why I've already fired up the dunk tank. Let's see, I've got this stupid little governor, this time thing I need to do every 15 minutes to keep the flame going. You might be wondering why I've already started heating up the water. That's because it's cold enough to where I want to get a head start on tomorrow. So not only am I going to heat up the water tonight, as hot as I can get it, I also threw in one of those submersible heating elements, which keeps the water warm. You may be able to see the light on. I think you can see the light in this camera. And that overnight will keep this big bucket of water from freezing and hopefully keep it as warm as possible, so when I come out here bright and early tomorrow morning, it won't require too much burning. What temperature do I like to have this barrel at, this water? When you're processing birds, I've personally found anywhere between 135 degrees Fahrenheit to about 150 degrees Fahrenheit. Any hotter than that, and then you really start to cook the birds. Any cooler than that, and it doesn't really loosen up the feathers as much as I'd like. So ideally, I'll have it right around 140, 145 degrees Fahrenheit. I'll also, in the morning, put a little bit of dish soap in here and stir it around. A viewer gave me this tip a few years ago. Having just a little bit of dish soap makes the feathers just fly off that much easier when you're plucking them. And that actually leads me to the next stop, which is once they've been dunked and I tested out those feathers to see how easy they come off, I will hang the carcass by the feet right here over this wheelbarrow, and I'll pluck off their feathers. All those feathers are going to go to our compost. I have it in the wheelbarrow, so it'll just make it easier for me to just go down and dump the feathers every once in a while. I do have a plucker. A lot of people have asked, do I have a automatic plucker? I do, but it's on the smaller side. It works great for chickens. We used it the last time we processed the breast chickens, but for the turkeys it's too big. So I just pluck them by hand after I've dunked them. Once I've dunked them, then I go here. This is the processing station, and I'll process the birds here with my knives. And I'll show you, I actually have an update on the knives that I'm kind of excited about, and I'll tell you guys about it here in a minute. This is just a place to store, if I need a place to store a feathered bird that I hadn't got around to. This is just kind of a storehouse for that. I've got a gut bucket to empty their guts into, and then the coolers, which I'll fill with ice this evening. I'll probably just leave the ice in the bags out here on the ground. It'll be well below freezing, so that ice won't melt. And what's interesting is that tomorrow, during our first few processing birds, during the processing of our first few birds, it'll be cold enough to where it'll actually be warmer in the cooler with the ice than it will be out here in the ambient temperature. Once they're in there, then we can split them up and bag them later. But that's the walkthrough in a nutshell. I think I've got it down to a pretty good science. Right now the temperature is, boy, maybe 75 degrees Fahrenheit. It's got a ways to go. So one thing I'm actually pretty excited about this year, and I mentioned it earlier, is the knives. So, I got a standard game processing kit, which I finally broke down and bought one. I've been using various kind of hodgepodge knives throughout the years, so I actually bought a whole kit, which is great. I'm excited about it. I'll probably mostly be using the boning knife, maybe the butcher knife as well throughout this process, maybe the caper knife. And that's great. I'm excited about this. This will be good. Dad and I will be processing tomorrow, and so we'll both draw heavily from these knives, and that's cool. But the thing I'm really excited about, I had a viewer tell me about this, is the razor blade knife. Now, these folks aren't paying me. No one reached out to me from Outdoor Edge, which is the company that makes these. This is just something that was recommended to me, and I'm highly excited to try it. It's different than most knives, and the way that it's different is it's a razor blade that's detachable. So the actual blade itself is the same type of blade that you have on a razor that you shave with. It's just shaped differently, and so it's very sharp as any razor blade is. Whether you're using a razor blade to shave or an X-Acto knife that you're using to cut for very precise applications, it's a little thicker, but it's the same type of blade. It's a razor blade, and the beauty of this thing is it's detachable. So you can buy like a 20-pack of blades of different sizes, and I do have maybe 10 other blades of different sizes. And when you're done with that particular blade, or it's beginning to go dull, you just switch it out. Easy as that. And so I had somebody recommend this, and I read some reviews, and hunters and people that process small game love these things because they never have to worry about sharpening them. When a blade is dull, they just toss it and they put a new blade. This one came with a bunch of extra blades. I think some are longer. So as you can see, you have different options in terms of length and the type of blade that you take on. And it's just literally just a bunch of extra blades that they sent. And you can buy other ones. You can also store them if you want to hold on to them for later. There's a little storage container. So this one, it's called Outdoor Edge is the company that makes them, and it's called the Razor Max. Has a sheath, and so I'll be probably leaning on this thing pretty heavily tomorrow when I process the turkeys. I'll let you know how it goes. One thing I'm slightly concerned about is it strong enough? It's very sharp razor blade material. Is this strong enough to stand up to a day of processing? I'll report back on how this thing works tomorrow. Okay, so it's roughly, I'd say sometime between 10 and 11. I don't have the exact time on me right now, but I'm about to go to bed. And a couple of things. I did try to get the turkeys gingerly into the A-frame, and that didn't work out well at all. They just now started to, I don't know if you can see them, settle back in on their roosts. The very act of even trying to pick them up caused a fair amount of bedlam in the barnyard. So I'm going to do what I talked about earlier and just come out here early and try to lure them into the A-frame to kind of protect them. The other thing that I did was I got ice set out here, and it's far below freezing. I've had this out for a few hours now. I don't need to worry about keeping that in a freezer or in coolers because that's going to stay frozen overnight. The big surprise is that I turned off the propane heater on my giant kettle here, and I came out here and checked and thought, oh, I bet the temperature's dropped. But that little immersion heater, this thing, has not only kept up the temperature, it's actually raised the temperature a bit. So when I turned the propane heater off earlier this evening, this late afternoon earlier, it was about at 125. I said, okay, I'll keep it there and I'll check it again tonight. And so I just checked it. Let me show you the temperature. See if you can see that. I'm not sure if you can see this. It's over 125. I'd say it's maybe 130 or so. And that's without the propane heater on. That's just the immersion thing down there. I'm going to shut that, keep the heat in. It fogged up my glasses. So I was very surprised that stayed as warm as it has. So hopefully that continues as the temperature begins to drop further tonight. It's, I want to say 20 degrees Fahrenheit right now. And I believe it's going to get down to 15 in the early morning. Probably by the time I'm up, it'll be down there. Hopefully that water stays well above 100 degrees, which will make heating it up a snap. Maybe I won't need to get up as early as I thought I did, but so far so good. We're ready to go tomorrow. The only wrinkle is the fact that we'll have to corral the turkeys in the morning, but that's fine. I'll deal with that. Well, we made it to the morning. It's a little bit after 7 a.m. right now. It's about 20 degrees Fahrenheit. -6 Celsius. And things are looking good. The temperature on this thing since last night has stayed constant. In fact, I think it's risen maybe a degree or two. I'm not sure if you can see with all the condensation on the thermometer, but it's somewhere between 140 and 150, which is exactly where I want it to be, without ever having to turn the propane on. So that little immersion heater has really come through in a big way. Now comes the interesting part of the morning, the part that I was kind of dreading, hoping will turn out okay, and that's corralling the affected turkeys into the A-frame. As I mentioned last night, I was going to try and convince them, persuade them with a treat, and so I made up some oatmeal. Now I'm going to try and kind of slowly lead them into the A-frame. Cross your fingers for me. Let's hope this works out okay. So I've done several birds with these knives now, and they're almost too sharp. You barely have to touch the skin or flesh, and it just comes right off, which is how you want processing knives to be. You want them to be as sharp as humanly possible, and that's what these things are. That's been my experience with the razor knife and with this new knife set I got. It's really good. So much different than my experience with other knives where I've kind of struggled and had to saw through flesh. One of the big tests when you have a knife set like this is how easy it is to get the crop out. There's the crop, this bag right here where birds process the food that they eat. It kind of gets stored in the crop until it goes down for further digestion. This is where the razor knife will come in handy, because it should just be able to, yep. The tricky part, and like I was saying, it's almost too good, is that if I'm not careful, it'll just cut right into the crop bag. So I've got to be extremely careful as I do this. See how it just peels away at the slightest touch of that razor blade. There's the crop. It's an empty crop, thankfully, but I was able to surgically remove it with precision with that razor blade knife. Two, the young hen, who I'm going to call Shirley, and Lenny. 3 turkeys left. These 3 turkeys I'm just going to hold on to and just keep them. They're mascots, they're pets here in the homestead, and they're going to make eggs for us and hopefully produce some babies. So I've broken the birds down into wings, legs, and breasts. And now we are going to bag them up, shrink wrap them in the boiling water, and then let them rest probably overnight in the cooler, because we don't want to freeze them right away. We've had good experiences when we let the meat rest, at least for a night. We're just waiting for this to heat up and finish. It's supposed to be at 212, and we're getting very, very close to 212. So probably just a few more minutes. In the meantime, I've dealt with my governor issue again. I just put in that big old nail there, and that just stops that stupid timer from ticking. While we wait for this to heat up, I did want to mention the socks. Camel City Mill, we're going on 2 months now. I only have one pair, and we wash them once or twice a week. So I'll wear them about 2 times a week. So far, they have not broken up on me or blown out on me. I go
Sean
through
has
socks.
a sock problem.
I've got a sock problem. I go through the toes, and my socks always blow out very, very quickly.
Someone commented, well, maybe he's got gnarly toenails and he needs to clip them. It's not that. It's not the toenails.
It's just the balls of my toes just always break through for whatever reason. I've had that problem for a long time. I can share that with you guys. But so far, the Camel City Mill socks have not broken down on me yet. And they're still very comfortable and thick. The padding is great. If you guys are interested in getting a pair, in the description below, I've got a link where you can get a 10% discount. If you click on that link and you use the promo code Yeoman10. So far, I'll be honest, when they break down, they have not broken down on me. It's so weird how excited I am about socks.
What's really funny is before this sock company got in touch with Sean to offer him free socks, Sean was like, I think I'm going to start a sock company. No joke, 2 weeks before this sock company reached out. And then Sean was like, a sock company contacted me.
I was very excited. And so far, they lived up to it. If they don't live up to their steel promise or whatever it is, I will start my own sock company. There has been no need for that because those socks have been incredible. Camel City Mill socks.
Great stocking stuffer this time of year.
Check them out
Nice,
in the
cozy
description
socks.
below. Real quick, Holly, for people watching, what did we do?
So we double bagged it. This is a really big breast, and we're working with chicken bags, and we don't have turkey bags or large bags. So we put a single bag on. We couldn't zip tie it at the top
Because it was sticking out at the top.
So then we just flipped it around upside down.
We put the straw in there.
We double bagged it, and then we dipped it again. So now all parts of the bird are covered. And now all we'll do is, once we're ready to put this in the freezer, we'll just tape this up a little bit, and then it's still fully sealed.
I didn't think it would work, but it did. Awesome. So Holly, we got these all packed up. You set the breasts up vertically
So they don't leak.
And we are going to let these sit out overnight. These are red bourbon turkeys that Jim and Kathy from Two Turtles Homestead gave us. They gave us those turkey poults when they were really young. We raised them up. Now they're going in the freezer, and I'm very excited to try them. This was a good day. This was probably my best day of processing that I've had so far. Everything went smoothly. I was afraid to say that earlier out of fear of jinxing the day, but it turns out the day was not jinxed, and it went really well. Lenny, at first when I looked at him, I thought he looked a little lonesome Lenny. But then the closer I looked at him, the more that I realized that's not loneliness, that's relief. Those fighting toms are gone. Lenny is happy to be the primo male in the barnyard again. In the next week or two, I'm going to head to the Kramers and get a bunch of chickens. Maybe like 10 chickens. Just to increase the laying that we've got. Thanks for hanging out with us, guys. Everything went smoothly as I hoped it would. And until we see you again next time, remember, as always, slowly, slowly.